Hello, everybody. Today, for reading, we are going to be beginning to discuss main idea and supporting details. When you're reading a text, whether it be a paragraph or passage or a story or a chapter in a story, there's usually a main idea. There's always a main idea. So we need to be able to identify the main idea as the sentence that discusses what the entire passage is about. So here we have some Google Slides that we're going to be working through this week, and I'm going to do an example with you today, and then you're going to do two examples on your own today. So as you can see here, there's a lot of different examples, but this is the original document, so you will only see two. You'll see numbers 2 and 3 in your assignment for today. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is begin reading each sentence so that you can try to figure out which one tells what the entire paragraph is about. So let's begin. The sea ice is always moving and changing with the seasons. So now if this is the main idea, then that would mean that every sentence here needs to discuss sea ice. This includes Canada, Russia, Alaska, Greenland, and Norway. So now you see that does not discuss sea ice, so the first sentence can't be the main idea. Let's see if every sentence is about Canada, Russia, Alaska, Greenland, and Norway. They can be found along the coasts, but spend the majority of their lives on sea ice. Okay, so we know that the main idea is not discussing these countries here, and it's also not only talking about sea ice. So we still haven't found our main idea. Let's move on here. They can be found along the coast, but spend the majority of their, oops, I think I just read this one, but anyway, of their lives on sea ice. So, okay, we've eliminated the first two as the main idea. So now if we read this next sentence, polar bears are only found in the Arctic Circle. Okay, now we're not discussing the lives of a sea animal. So if we look here, polar bears are only found in the Arctic Circle. This sentence talks about countries in the Arctic Circle. This is talking about sea ice. This is talking about an animal spending their lives on sea ice. This says polar bears are found in the Arctic Circle, and this says that sea ice provides a place where the polar bears can live, can hunt and live. So here, polar bears, polar bears. This says they, which they're talking about polar bears. And then these two are discussing the habitat or the environment of the polar bears and where they live. So this here is our main idea. Polar bears are only found in the Arctic Circle. So in order to drag it, if you look, I'm hovering over the text box and it gives me the cursor. Now I can't just drag it with the cursor. So what I need to do is put my cursor right on the line, and that will allow me to drag that text box. You could do this line here, or this line, or any of the 4 lines, but I usually just go to the top. And then I'm going to drag that here. Polar bears are only found in the Arctic Circle. Okay, now you see how the text box is sort of highlighted and I can type in it. I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to click outside of the text box. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to put these other 4 sentences in sequential order. I want it to make the most sense and to go in a nice flow and to for one sentence to lead into the next. So polar bears are only found in the Arctic Circle. The sea ice is always moving. Well, I haven't talked about sea ice, so that's kind of a weird transition. This includes Canada, Russia, Alaska, Greenland, and Norway. These 5 countries are in the Arctic Circle. So I think that would be a good transition. Let's double check. They can be found along the coasts, but spend the majority of their lives on sea ice. And sea ice provides a place where the polar bears can hunt and live. So here, And here, they're all talking about sea ice, but I want to transition from the Arctic Circle to countries included in the Arctic Circle. So again, when you're dragging, have your cursor create that sort of cross there with the 4 arrows, and you can drag it right into detail 1. Oops, sorry about that. Polar bears are only found in the Arctic Circle. This includes Canada, Russia, Alaska, Greenland, and Norway. Okay, now, since these 3 sentences talk about sea ice, I want to see which one is more of an introduction to sea ice. So, the sea ice is always moving and changing with the seasons. They can be found along the coasts, but spend the majority of their lives on sea ice. Or sea ice provides a place where the polar bears can hunt and live. This sort of introduces sea ice. That is the one I want to go next to make this sequence the most fluid that I can. Okay, so again, I'm going to click outside of the text box, and then I'm going to look at these two. So my last sentence was sea ice provides a place where the polar bears can hunt and live. Now I'm looking at the sea ice is always moving and changing with the seasons. They can be found along coasts, but spend the majority of their lives on sea ice. I think this one makes more sense sequentially. They can be found, because now we're still talking about polar bears. They can be found along the coast, but spend the majority of their lives on sea ice. Sea ice provides a place where polar bears can hunt and live. And the sea ice is Sea ice is always moving and changing along with the seasons. That's sort of the wrap up of this sentence, of this paragraph. Okay, so again, this is all talking about the fact that polar bears are only found in the Arctic Circle. These are the countries in the Arctic Circle. It's talking about where polar bears can be found on the sea ice, why they spend their time on the sea ice, what this sea ice provides for the polar bears, and sort of a wrap up. The sea ice is always moving and changing with the seasons. All right, so that is how I would like for you to do your work today, tomorrow, and probably even Wednesday. Remember that this is a 3-day week only. We do have off on Thursday and Friday. Okay, but we're not quite done yet. Here, how do you know the details support the main idea? So you're going to click here, and what you can do is you can just backspace that text. And then how do you know the details support the main idea? You can begin by restating, I know that the details support the main idea because each detail discusses polar bears and their environment or habitat. Okay, so we talk about where they're found. We talk about the fact that they live on sea ice. Sea ice provides a place where the polar bears can hunt. Okay, more about polar bears. It's about polar bears. It's about where they can be found in the Arctic Circle, polar bears, and a wrap up sort of about the sea ice and the fact that the sea ice is changing is actually endangering the polar bears. All right, so that is how I would like for you to do your work. And don't forget to do a sentence here, a nice full sentence with a capital letter, a restatement. You guys can definitely handle it. And so that's how I'd like for you to do your work. And then we'll do the same thing for the next 2 days as well. All right, that's it for your reading today. So have a great day.